Oh. No. No. An experiment.
It was bad!
It was a test.
The Matrix Resurrections is one of the most baffling films I've ever seen. It's a film that didn't need to be made, knows it didn't need to be made, and prides itself on not needing to be made. The entire film can be summed up with, this never needed to happen. I know there are plenty of people who are going to love this movie. I am not one of them. I know what it's like to love a Matrix film that everyone hates. The Matrix Reloaded is my favorite of the series, sans the rave scene and the terrible CGI, but Resurrections is on a whole other level. There's so much wrong with this film, from the plot, the themes, the action, the editing, and all the meta references. Not bringing back Hugo Weaving and Lawrence Fishburne is a major sin, and the explanations given in the film just fall flat. But the biggest sin is that this never feels like a Matrix film. It feels like some studio exec's attempt at making a Matrix film. It's like someone asked what would happen if we removed the philosophy, dumbed down the action, and oversimplified the plot, but acted like it was still this multi-layered extravaganza, and then actually made that movie. And you have to wonder if this is because only one Wachowski worked on the film. For whatever reason, only Lana was involved. When asked, Lily Wachowski was kind of bitchy about it. Given that the series was developed by both of them, it's questionable to have half their creative team missing. How bad is this film? Well, knuckle up, Coppertop, because we're jacking in. And yes, there will be spoilers for your own good. The gist of the plot is that Neo is trapped in the Matrix again, and is having flashbacks to his previous life, which has been turned into a video game trilogy published by Warner Brothers and created by Thomas Anderson, aka Neo. His analyst, or his therapist, treats these flashbacks as delusions and gives Neo blue pills to suppress them. Meanwhile, a new team of red pills led by Bugs and accompanied by a fake Morpheus frees Neo, and he learns that the machines broke the truce and went to war amongst themselves, resulting in a new power faction, a purge of the previous Matrix and its programs, like the Oracle, and some machines, now called sentients, siding with the humans. The Analyst, the program running this new Matrix, somehow resurrected both Trinity and Neo, and is using them to maintain control over the people in the rebuilt Matrix. The unplugged humans now live in the new city of Io under Niobe's leadership. Neo wants to free Trinity, who's also living a false life in the new Matrix, but learns that this can only be done if Trinity chooses to go free. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with that plot. The Matrix Revolutions ended in a way that allows the possibility of Neo coming back, the machines betraying the humans, and for the Matrix itself being changed. The Matrix Online basically told this story. This could work on film, and in theory should have worked here, but it didn't. It couldn't. It was compelled to stray, compelled to disobey. Having watched the film twice, I get the feeling that Lana didn't accidentally make the movie this way. This looks like Lana wrote and directed The Matrix Resurrections as a B-movie knockoff intentionally, purposefully. Take the opening scene. It plays out like the first Matrix film, down to the dialogue. It's obviously a retread of that film, but things are off. Agent Smith is played by a black guy, Trinity clearly isn't Trinity, and the action scene doesn't play out the same way. Bugs, our blue-haired ethnic action girl lead, because of course she is, mentions that this whole scene we're seeing is fake. It's a modal, a simulation run within the Matrix, basically a Matrix inside a Matrix, used to train programs. How does she know exactly what Trinity did in the Matrix to be able to tell something's wrong? Who knows? It's just one of the many massive plot holes in this film, like how she discovers fake Morpheus. After Bugs realizes there's something wrong with the Trinity scene, she gets attacked by Blacksmith and flees into an antique shop to hide. There, Blacksmith pops out one of the back doors in the Matrix and takes her into another room, which turns out to be a recreation of Neo's apartment. Bugs explains that Blacksmith is a sentient, basically a program, in a modal, and she's trying to figure out why he's there. She then realizes she's in Neo's home, and Blacksmith says he's looking for Neo, so Bugs reveals that she's actually seen Neo, but he looks different. He tried to jump off a building, and in the moment before he should have fallen, she saw the real Neo. Blacksmith says that one day he noticed the Matrix code all around him, and that he's been trying to figure out what's going on. When Bugs asks who he is, Blacksmith says he's Morpheus, and Bugs hugs him as if she knows him, also implying that Morpheus was somehow reinserted into the Matrix as well. No, settle down, nothing that cool happens. It would appear the real Morpheus is as dead as this franchise, but we're not told how that happens, and it's never mentioned whether he even went back into the Matrix. So, who in the blue hell is this? Well, he's a program created by Neo, and he's a mixture of Agent Smith and Morpheus, and was designed to help Neo break free of the new Matrix by being inserted into the modal within the video game version of the Matrix Neo was testing, and letting the sim run in the hopes that the people of Zion, or now Io, wouldn't notice this. Oh, I know it makes no sense. That's why it's in the film. You want to know something that makes even less sense? Bugs believes this. Why? Couldn't this Morpheus be a fake created by the machines? Bugs doesn't contact the operator, who can now project themselves into the Matrix to be seen by the Red Pills, to check who she's actually talking to. Wouldn't the smart thing to do be to check to see if his code matches the real Morpheus's code? She just gives him the red pill, he takes it and gets high, and they run and jump off a building, which apparently allows him to wake up from the Matrix now.
Whoa.
But if they can just wake up like that, how do you kill someone in the Matrix? If someone's trying to kill you, couldn't you just wake up? I'm sure this will never be a problem. I'm sure Bugs totally won't tell Neo that they don't need to use phone booths to get out of the Matrix anymore, and then fail to explain how they actually get out now.
We don't have to run to phone booths anymore either.
Damn it, woman, you will be the end of me.
Well, that's a mess, but an interesting mess, which is why Lana said, let's kill that dramatic tension dead in its tracks. Let's get meta.
Oh no.
We see that Neo is watching the modal on the screen in his office, and he gets an error message. The office is covered in real Matrix merchandise, complete with the mannequin hand flipping it all off. Subtle. Literally no part of this section is subtle. It's the meta section, where everything is clearly a reference to real-world circumstances around the Matrix franchise, and it just brings the film to a screeching halt. The Matrix has always been about commentary on real-world issues, but it was contextualized within the fantasy world. Philosophical arguments played out as battles within the Matrix, concepts were wrapped in lore, everything was hyper-real as a way of heightening the commentary. This doesn't work if the characters are aware of all of that and commenting on it. It takes away from the gravitas of the moments. It also results in silly things like Neo's creepy fanboy assistant who has no filter. It'd be funny if this game that Neo created was called something other than The Matrix, but because it's called the same thing, it doesn't feel like a movie scene. It feels more like watching Keanu Reeves deal with a real douchey assistant. This plays out in Simulate, a coffee shop with obvious Matrix references. Neo's assistant is acting like a creepy fanboy when Neo sees Trinity, or Tiffany. Neo and Trinity shake hands, and she asks if they know each other, and he mentions that he sees her in the shop from time to time. Then her husband Chad shows up to whisk Trinity away. It's so sudden that it's obvious what's happened, and the same thing happened with Neo when he noticed the error message, and his assistants were instantly there. Neo and Trinity are being watched, and things interrupt them whenever they get too close to the truth or each other. But if you thought that was going to build to something interesting, Neo goes back to the office and finds that the modal was deleted. He's then called in to meet his business partner, who's obviously Agent Smith. Why didn't they get Hugo Weaving? Who knows? What I do know is that this dollar store replacement ain't cutting it. At least get the cadence right, but nope. He's all over the place, which the actor intentionally did to not copy Weaving's performance, meaning no one will actually think he's Agent Smith. Guess he thought no one would notice. Well, we noticed. That and the oh-so-telling meta conversation Neo and Smith have. Neo's having flashbacks about Smith throughout the whole thing, but that's secondary. The real story here is Lana spilling the beans on how and why this movie got made. Smith says that Warner Brothers is going to make another Matrix sequel. Neo says that he thought that they couldn't do that he and Smith, or Lana and Lily, had veto power, but apparently things changed. WB is making a sequel, with or without their approval. Is that what happened here? Because it feels like that's what happened here. WB had teased making another Matrix film or a TV series several times since 2003, but nothing happened. Now it looks like things might have changed at the studio. I noticed that Joel Silver didn't produce the new film. I know he split with WB about 10 years ago, and also left his production company. He was the reason the Wachowskis were able to make the movies as they wanted, so was Silver's absence the thing that changed the deal? Who knows? Things kind of course correct with the analyst meeting, where Neil Patrick Harris just gobbles up every bit of scenery. Keanu Reeves isn't known for his acting chops, but in this scene, he never had a chance because every time he tried to nibble on something, NPH was like, let me just take that from you. We do find out what's going on with Neo. He's having flashes of his prior life, which is now in this video game, so he can't tell what's real or fake, and he tried to jump off a building to find out. Now he's in therapy to cope, and it's plainly obvious to every Matrix fan that the analyst is part of the system to keep Neo in place, given all the blue he's wearing and the blue pills he gives to Neo to take. This part works, however, it also suggests that the audience is supposed to question whether the Matrix films were real. And that doesn't work because we've already seen the trailers, and nothing in this part of the film really sells it. Why? Because everything's meta commentary, so it's clearly not real. Even if it's meant to be the real world, because of the commentary, it's real in the same sense as Neil Patrick Harris is playing his real self in Harold and Kumar. We all know it's not legit. That's so painfully obvious that no normal person would even write this into a treatment, let alone a shooting script, unless you were trying to make a point to studio execs about how stupid this was and just did it to prove it. That might explain the follow-up montage, where we see the completely idiotic musings of the marketing team trying to figure out what the Matrix means and what people want to see and what the sequel should be about. It's complete with Matrix code flowing in the background because, see, being in these sessions is like being in the Matrix. Subtle. Then we finally get a proper Neo and Trinity scene. They meet at Simulate again, and she reveals that she's checked out the game and thinks she looks like the character from the game, and even likes motorcycles like the character from the game. We get a quick glimpse of what Trinity really looks like in the reflection on the table, and the same thing happens with Neo in various shots. They don't look like themselves to other people, however, it appears Neo and Trinity recognize each other. Before they can get any deeper in their conversation, Trinity gets a call about her kids and leaves. The scenes with Keanu and Carrie Ann are fun because they've got great chemistry. They genuinely like each other off screen and it comes through in their performance. If the film were mostly about these two finding each other again, it'd be fine. It wouldn't be a Matrix film, but it'd be a joy to watch. But that joy doesn't last. Neo goes back to the office and there's an alarm, and everyone has to leave, and just like in the first film, Neo gets a message, this time a text message telling him to go to the door at the end of the hall. And it's shown on screen as text, even though we can clearly read his phone in the next shot.
Not too bright though.
Anyway, Neo goes to the restroom and meets fake Morpheus, who just shits on the real Morpheus. The whole encounter is another meta scene, and it destroys the gravitas of Neo meeting Morpheus. We know Morpheus's cadence is overdramatic. We know he's overselling the dialogue. We accept that because he's a prophet of sorts, so his haughty behavior makes sense. Making fun of that takes away the power of the scene, and it doesn't help that fake Morpheus doesn't add anything new. He offers the red pill to Neo, who rejects it, and fake Morpheus is like, "You left me in that motor to rot. Take this pill, bitch." So much better than the first film. Neo doesn't take the pill, and the SWAT team arrives, and oh, it's Matrix action time. You remember Matrix action time? Remember when they used to do the gunplay? Remember the flips? Remember the rain? I remember when Matrix fight scenes looked cool. The choreography is fine, the set piece is fine, it's just missing something, and it's not the bullet time, it's the framing. The Matrix is known for its awesome action, with these wide shots so you can see the actors are actually doing the stunts, and they look dramatic like a comic book in motion, and that's gone. Now it looks like a typical Hollywood action movie aping that style, and that's a travesty. But not as much as Smith realizing who he is because he picked up a gun. Yes, that's actually what happens. He walks out of his office, sees the gun, sees Neo, picks up the gun, does some little head shake, and then screams Mr. Anderson and tries to kill Neo. Of the least dramatic ways to bring back one of the coolest villains in cinema history, you have him remember who he is because he picked up a gun and said, "I've missed you," which is an accurate statement about his and every other machine's inability to hit their targets in this film. Listen, this is the Matrix, not Star Wars. Agents are supposed to be competent and deadly. So in the middle of this, a black cat appears, and right as Smith is about to kill Neo, Neo is back in the analyst's office, and the black cat jumps down off the table next to its bowl, which has the name Deja Vu written on it. This is supposed to make the audience think everything's been in Neo's mind, but again, we all saw the trailers, so this doesn't work. It just reveals that the analyst controls the Matrix and refreshes it using Deja Vu when Neo gets too close to waking up.
Good point.
This whole thing is a convoluted mess, and we're not even 40 minutes into the movie. At this point, the momentum is dead. It's going nowhere, so thankfully Neo decides to jump off a building again and end it, but that would make everyone happy, which is why the blue-haired lesbian comes out of nowhere and saves him. Bugs tells him that she saw him do this before, but he didn't fall, meaning that she saw part of the refresh. Apparently, she's always assumed she'd find Neo, so she had a rabbit tattooed on her shoulder. But how does she know to do this? Only Morpheus and his first crew knew about the rabbit symbol, and they're all dead. Even if this is used as a way of waking up minds in general, Bugs now knows that the machines know about Neo's life and things that he's experienced. So wouldn't they use the rabbit symbol as a way of confusing him? Wouldn't it be better to use something they likely wouldn't know about or thought was trivial but Neo would recognize, like something from Zion? This is supposed to be a powerful moment, but since the film was on a boring 20-minute meta trip, there's no tension or drama in the scene. It would have been better to have this be someone Neo knew, maybe like the kid from Reloaded. By it being Bugs, a character no one cares about, it has no weight. At any rate, this works, and Neo goes through the door and onto the train, and Bugs takes him to see fake Morpheus again, this time in a rundown theater playing scenes of the actual Morpheus from the first film. Subtle. Bugs tells Neo that 60 years have passed, not 20, since he died. Neo asks why it took so long to find him, and fake Morpheus says that maybe it's because Neo didn't want to be found and was working with the enemy, which is silly coming from a program created by Neo to wake Neo up. Wouldn't that make fake Morpheus part of the trick too?
Good point.
Even then, fake Morpheus offers Neo the pills, and of course Neo takes the red one. There's a mirror again, but this time when Neo touches it, his hand goes through into the analyst's home. Bugs' crew also notices that there's something weird about Neo's code, like there's a tether or tracer attached, which explains the mirror being different. Basically, every way Neo would use to get out of the Matrix leads back to the analyst. He's totally trapped without outside help. Fine, that works to raise the stakes, except that never pays off. For example, the analyst sends SWAT teams to the theater. Fake Morpheus shoots the mirror to free Neo, and you'd think it'd cut Neo in half since he's halfway through the mirror, but the red pills escape back to the train, and the SWAT team fires a rocket at them as they go through the door, and it doesn't kill or even injure any of them. On the train, they're attacked by bots, the new agents of the system. They're sleeper agents, posing as humans unaware of what they are until they're activated, making it impossible to trust anyone in the Matrix. Now, you might be saying, isn't that how the agents already work? But it's different now because they don't have to do the whole VFX morphs. They can just put Matrix code in people's eyes for 2 seconds.
That's a nice trick.
Honestly, this whole movie would be so much better if you just think about it as a $200 million low-budget B-movie, which would explain the action set piece on the train. Who let Christopher Nolan watch The Bourne Identity, and why'd you let him film your action scenes? A fight on a train can be fun and dramatic, but this ain't it. The edits and the framing and the camera seizures just take away any intensity, as does a swarm of bots never hurting or killing a single member of this team, even though they're supposed to be more dangerous than the previous agents, and oh look, some of the bots are wearing face masks. Pussies. Anyway, all the red pills survive this, and they get Neo out through a tiny mirror in the restroom, and he wakes up in the Anomalium, where there are just 2 pods, his and Trinity's. He's freed and taken to the Nemesine, and placed in a construct where fake Morpheus fights Neo to try to trigger Neo's powers, and I had to stop the film to check I wasn't watching Taken because of all the goddamn edits. We know Keanu Reeves can do martial arts and look competent. Hell, he filmed John Wick 4 around the same time. He can do it, so why are you making him look like his teeth are arthritic? But this works to get his powers back, and then Bugs goes to talk to him, and Neo thinks everything he did was meaningless because the truce failed, and he has a point, one that many people made about another franchise having the villains come back to power after they were defeated. Now, it can work with the Matrix because the machines could easily break the truce, which is what happened with the Matrix Online. You could bring Neo back, and with his powers in the Matrix, maybe you could find a way to bring Trinity back as well. But do you need to tell that story? That's what this really comes down to. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Like making cutesy sentients that hang out with the crew of the Nemesine.
Is this real?
Yep, they created Matrix versions of BB-8, who are barely in the film, so you never care about them. Kinda like the rest of the crew. Neo meets them and they nerd out over him, and even fake Morpheus can interact with the real world using anal beads. But we never learn anything about these people. In the first film, we had a couple of character building scenes to learn a little about them, at least how they interacted with each other. That never happens here. Hell, we don't even really get anything about Bugs, and she's one of the main characters, so there's no reason to care about any of them, not that anything bad ever happens to them to make you want to care. They head to the new city of Io, which is protected by a holographic rock face because why would the machines be able to detect a high-powered energy field like a massive hologram, or this city with an artificial sky? It's not like the machines are looking for them and know the humans hide underground. At least with Zion, we find out that the reason the machines can't find them is because the machines already know where Zion is and are just biding their time. What's the excuse here? That the Sentients created new technology to hide Io, which somehow the other machines can't figure out how to replicate, track, or defeat? Sure, why not? It turns out that Niobe is in charge, and goddamn, what happened to her face? It's like she wrapped her face in Will Smith's ball sack. It's not like he's using it to do anything. Niobe demotes Bugs for disobeying orders and finding Neo, which is weird considering they're still at war with the machines, but she explains why. See, Niobe's tired of war. After Neo got the truce, the machines honored it, letting humans go free, but this resulted in a power shortage, so they went to war with each other over resources. a new power rose and purged the Matrix, killing off most of the programs, which apparently included the Oracle. During this time, Morpheus was made the leader, and he believed the truth would hold because he totally believed something without evidence again after being shown that the machines lied about the prophecy of the One, as you do. Then Niobe takes Neo to meet her significant other Freya. You're gonna need a tetanus shot after all that rusty scissoring, who makes strawberries with sentience. This is supposed to show what humans and machines can do if they work together, but Io is still a suck existence, so... Niobe then takes Neo to Morpheus' memorial, and oh my god. Who let the Lionel Richie sculptor out of the Matrix? Put him back in. Put him back in. Why is this so bad? It's not like you have 4 decades of reference of Lawrence Fishburne and a $200 million budget to hire a good sculptor or a 3D sculpting machine that could do this for you. Anyway, Neo wants to save Trinity, but Niobe doesn't want to risk Io, so she locks Neo up, and 20 seconds later, fake Morpheus frees him, so that was pointless. Just like this entire section of the film, since nothing ever happens to Io. The machines don't know where it is, they're not threatened from within, and nothing changes once Neo arrives or leaves. You could cut out this entire section from the film and it wouldn't change anything because you get all the information Niobe gave later on in the film. So the Red Pills go back into the Matrix and wind up in a warehouse that looks like an abandoned studio. And there they meet Dollar Store Smith, who wants to kill the analyst because he's the one who has control, and Smith doesn't like this, but it's not clear why. However, he wants to kill Neo to stop Neo from freeing Trinity, because this will make it impossible for Smith to get revenge against the analyst. Also, apparently the analyst knew about Smith's connection to Neo and didn't purge Smith, but since Smith was destroyed at the end of Revolutions, he shouldn't have been able to come back anyway. Yeah, it makes no sense, but it's not meant to, because remember how cool Smith was? Remember how cool the Merovingian was? You like Merv with the French powder mouth and the digital orgasm? Well, he's back. Looking like the Train Man, literally bitching about bad sequels during the entire fight and reciting lines of Madonna's Vogue. And again, the action is just painful. It gets a little better when Smith and Neo square off, but not by that much. It does look like they're fighting on the set from the room where Smith captured Morpheus, implying that this may be where they shot scenes from the Matrix for the in-world game. Of course, Neo wins and goes to get Trinity as she's working on her Ducati bike. She tells him that she's had a dream about them in a room full of cops and they try to escape on her bike, but it doesn't end well. Neo tries to explain things, but before he can do that, Trinity fades into Matrix code, and the analyst appears and finally explains what the hell is happening an hour and a half into the film. So apparently the analyst is a machine that carried Neo away at the end of Revolutions. He sets about resurrecting Neo to get in good with the powers that be, but there's a catch. It was never just Neo. Trinity is also tied to Neo, so she has to be resurrected too, and if placed close enough together, they can be used to control the other humans trapped in the Matrix. If they're too close, they gain powers again. Too far apart, and their residual effect doesn't work. Does this make any sense? The explanation in the film is that humans basically want to be controlled, and the easiest way to do this is giving them shitty lives that they hate, but don't have the will to abandon to get the things that they desire because they don't want to face the risk. Isn't that what happened in the previous films? But see, it's different because instead of being a commentary about the illusion of choice, it's a snarky commentary about the illusion of choice, and social media, and it's got Neil Patrick Harris. See, it's different, but not really. It really comes down to Neo and Trinity's love for each other and how they do anything to be together. The problem is that this story was already told. Neo was given the choice in Reloaded to go to the source and reboot the Matrix and save everyone, or go through the other door and save Trinity, which would end with everyone in Zion dying. And he went to save his woman. That made him different from every previous anomaly. They'd all been programmed to love humanity, but Neo didn't just love humanity. He loved a specific person. And this created a new problem for the machines because it changed the path Neo would take to get to the end, which may have been the Oracle's plan all along. Really doesn't matter. The point is that we've already done the love story, so none of this needed to happen. However, there is an interesting new bit. The analyst flips bullet time on its head, allowing him to move at regular speed while everyone else moves slowly, kind of like in a dream where you can't run. Honestly, the scene itself is brilliant because Neil Patrick Harris is having a ball, but story-wise, it's a retread that isn't as interesting or cool as the original concept. The analyst gives Neo a choice: return to his pod or the analyst will kill Trinity. Bugs and the crew arrive, and when they all wake up, they find that they've been trailed by another ship and get taken back to Io, where Niobe scolds them for doing exactly what she knew they would do. And then Sati appears in the form of a metal bird, cause in a world where machines look like bugs, of course she'd be a bird. She takes Neo and Niobe somewhere and reveals that she's known about Neo the entire time. She's actually part of his marketing team in the Matrix. She's been watching him but chose not to tell Niobe, so Niobe wouldn't have to choose between Io and Neo. Niobe gets pissy about not being given a choice, Sati apologizes, and they just move on. Wait, all of you are obsessed over your ability to choose. Sati just admitted that she kept Neo's existence secret for nearly 60 years, probably resulting in a host of bad decisions by you and everyone else, and you just let that go? Okay. Anyway, turns out Sati's parents built the Anomalium, and out of guilt her father shared their plans with her, but the analyst found out and purged their parents. Sati managed to escape and can apparently hide in plain sight, like being right next to Neo for weeks without anyone on the analyst team, like all of Neo's assistants, noticing.
That's a nice trick.
Sati's plan is to have fake Morpheus sneak into the Anomalium, open the sewer pipe so Bugs and Sati can enter, and then Sati will bypass Trinity's plug, jack Bugs into Trinity's pod so that they can momentarily share minds, because of course Bugs' mind is similar to Trinity's, and then free Trinity from the pod and get out before the analyst notices. It's a stupid plan that goes off without a hitch because of course it would. There are no actual stakes in this film, no actual threat of failure. Whatever the Red Pills want to do, they're gonna succeed. The one fun part about the scene is Sati's delivery because it's done in this very Indian cadence, so it sounds like she's doubting the plan while she's saying, of course it's gonna work. But the whole thing hinges on Trinity choosing to go free. If she doesn't, then this will kill her, but you already know what will happen. Neo goes into the Matrix to confront the analyst. He asks to see Trinity and offers the analyst a choice. If Trinity chooses to remain in the Matrix, Neo will give himself up. But if she chooses to go free, the analyst must let them go or the crew will unplug Neo, killing him. And the analyst is fine with this. He's so confident that he's happy to let this play out. Trinity drives up on her bike, comes in, and tells Neo that this is just like her dream. He admits that the Matrix is real, and Trinity admits that she's starting to doubt this world, but she still doesn't believe she's Trinity, and her family comes in saying there's been an accident, so she leaves with them, but as she's leaving, she looks back and sees Neo being pinned down, and her husband Chad tries to pull her away, and yells Tiffany, and that finally causes her to break and become Trinity again. Chad turns out to be a bot, so she whoops his ass, to which her kids say nothing, and never appear in the film again. The analyst stops everything with bullet time and goes to shoot Trinity when Dollar Store Smith comes up out of nowhere, totally unaffected by bullet time, which isn't explained. His powers seem to come from Neo grafting onto him in the first film, and he seems to work like he did previously, being able to take over the bodies of whatever humans he wants. So whatever affects Neo should affect him, but hey, the plot needs bullet time not to work, so it doesn't. He beats up the analyst who tries to get to Deja Vu to refresh everything, while Sati works to free Trinity. Sati makes the switch, but the analyst notices and sends a death squad, but they're too late. Sati and the crew have already escaped because of course they would. Neo and Trinity touch, apparently finally giving them access to the One powers, and they defeat the cops. The analyst comes in to trash talk, but he gets gunned down by Smith, who then says that the truce between him and Neo is over and he leaves the body he's taken over. Excuse me, what truce? Why would Dollar Store Smith help Neo when the last time he saw Neo, he wanted to kill him? And he just leaves? They're just going to let this incredibly powerful rogue program with a hate boner for Neo just wander around while they're trying to escape? So escape they do. Trinity and Neo take the Ducati, the others take cars, and no one will be killed in this ridiculous action scene. Yes, even in the part where two of them get trapped and swarmed by the largest bot swarm they've ever seen, no one dies. They're bleeding out of every hole in the real world so bad that Bugs jacks back in to help, but no one dies. Nope, Bugs just comes in with fake Morpheus to save everyone, especially her lesbian lover. Oh, you knew she was gay. Stop acting like you didn't see that coming. Meanwhile, Neo and Trinity are chased by bots, and some start jumping out of windows, dive bombing them, and eventually the bike gets taken out by a rocket, but Trinity and Neo hold hands when it hits, so they survive it, and they flee into a building. They're trapped on the roof and eventually get hit by a rocket blast again. When Trinity gets up, she remembers everything, and they jump off the roof to fly away, except Neo can't fly. No, it's Trinity. She's the one who can fly. The chopper lines up for the final shot, and Trinity says fly and she flies away. What? What, you thought something cool and dramatic would happen here? Like when Neo stopped the bullets and killed Smith? No, it's not the kind of movie, son. Instead, Trinity comes back with the new Matrix suit and blows a hole in the analyst's office. The analyst suddenly becomes a misogynist so Trinity can kill him with no effort and resurrect him with the snap of her finger. That's way better than a capable villain being bested by a hero who had to earn his win by dying and coming back to life. And because this film is a proper mess, it ends with the analyst congratulating them on their win and going, now what? You won, so now you're going to remake The Matrix? Go ahead. These people, these sheeple, won't go along with it. They like being controlled. So eventually, you're going to have to go back to your pods. And Neo and Trinity respond by saying they're going to do exactly what he told them to do. That's your plan. That's how you're going to own the analyst. He says, go do whatever you want. And you're like, oh yeah? Well, we going to go and do whatever we want. I thought this was the Matrix, not Twitter. And the whole time, Neo and Trinity are finishing each other's sentences like agents, which makes them look like villains. Have either of you considered whether the rest of the people plugged in want to go along with your plans? Did you ask? Do you care? How does this make you any different than the machines? And to prove this movie is a shell of its former self, there's this third-rate cover of Wake Up by some woman. I think it's the same woman who peed on that guy on stage. Guess she wasn't the only one pissing on things. This film is a perfect example of why sometimes you just need to leave a franchise alone. I'm a fan of The Matrix. I'd love more stories in that world, but
not like this. Not like this.
It can't be done by some executive's demand or forcing Wachowskis to make something. It has to come from them on their own terms or with their approval, or don't do it. Otherwise, you get The Matrix Resurrections, a B-movie whose entire plot is an admission that the film doesn't need to exist. Outside of Neil Patrick Harris and Keanu and Carrie Ann's chemistry, everything was unremarkable and forgettable. Name anything you think worked in this film, it was done better in the previous films. Watching this film was a chore, but I watched it twice just to make sure that I wasn't being unfair. It's just bad. I think Morpheus, the real Morpheus, said it best.
I have dreamed a dream, but now that dream is gone from me.
But what do I know? I'm just some guy.